Hello, and welcome back to Beyond the Fantasy Costumes and Courage, episode 4. I'm Rowan, and
I'm Stephanie.
And this is Bo.
It's Bo Peep, our dog.
Yeah, so if you ever hear weird noises, we're gonna blame her.
Yeah.
All her.
Yep.
Okay. So when we left off last time, we had just finished wrapping up Friday and we went to bed. So it's only natural that we start off with getting up on Saturday, getting ready for the day ahead of us. We had our plan in action, or ready to be actioned.
Yep. I think she wants to be on the floor.
Yeah.
I think she saw her ball. Yes, so we got up Saturday. We had some breakfast. We, went to the loos, retouched up makeup, started getting kit on.
Yeah. 10
a.m. hit, which is time in on Saturday. We were still getting ready.
Yeah.
But a little bit after 10, we both headed off.
Yeah, we headed off to the Adventurers Guild. You went off to find the new player group to see if they wanted to join the Adventurers Guild with us.
Yeah. But they had, yes.
Yeah.
They had their own adventures and mayhem and chaos to enjoy, so they passed.
Yeah, and in looking for them, I saw a camp attack outside Avaro, where I say a camp attack, there was some unsavoury people who had wandered into camp and started demanding rent off of the Avaro camp, saying that we were camping on their land and, we needed to pay them. At which point, the Avaro people were like, "No, the gods built this place. What are you talking about?" The unsavoury characters drew their weapons and started to attack the Avaro people. I dropped my water bottle and then I rushed out to help them, but by the time I got to anyone, everyone was dead. There was just one archer who was trying to fight someone, and then I kind of just stood behind him and then distracted him so that the other guy could, get him down on the floor, and then the guy was like, do you wanna execute him? At which point I said, "No, you did literally all the hard work, I just got it." At which point he said, "Oh, thanks," and then swiftly dispatched the guy. Nice. I started to walk away, and then another wave came in, at which point I was like, they handled it so easily the first time, I am not needed here. Spent the next 5 minutes looking for my water bottle. Managed to find it eventually, luckily. Now lost it, but anyway. And then I found you wandering around the centre.
Yep.
And we went into the Adventurers Guild.
Yep. There were two kind of lines when we walked into the Adventure Guild. And didn't know which one was the right one. Luckily, we joined the right one.
Yeah.
And as we were kind of standing in line, I think that's when there was the guildmaster talked about the bestiary.
Yeah.
As well, we were in line. We were both like, "Ooh, you want to do that?" Okay, yeah. After we sign up, when we were about halfway through the line, someone realized that they didn't have their player passport yet again, and had to run back and get it.
It was the guy with 2 thumbs. This guy. I'm watching Scrubs again, and that came to mind. So I had to run back and get it. Run back, got it, came back, and then, there was the guildmaster speaking to you and someone else asked him about the type of creature, right, and what sort of sphere of magic it would be from. The guildmaster said it's probably fable because it sounded like there would have been
Was it a kraken?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
it was kraken.
Yeah. And they said, is there anywhere we can learn about it? The guildmaster said, well, you should maybe ask our Fable Weaver, because it sounds like there's a lot of stories about it, and part of Fable magic is when a story is told and repeated lots of times, then that thing can come into being. So essentially, which was really bad because after they said Kraken, I can stop at thinking land Kraken.
All day.
Which would be really bad.
All day he kept going off about a land Kraken.
Yeah, well, I don't want it to happen, but me telling the story could make it happen, which would be funny. So, with my character being very interested in Shaft Shadows, the only section of lore on Shaft Shadows on the wiki is about the Hewers seeing them and then sort of telling them the stories to scare kids, really.
Yeah, kind of.
Which you said is probably it's kind of like German fable-y.
Yeah, I mean, the Germans use folk tales to teach kids lessons and whatnot, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you said probably don't go down the cave because there's a Shaft Shadow there that will get you, kind of thing. So yeah, I was very interested to hear about that because they sound like they could possibly be linked. I don't have any answers, but yeah. Then we waited in line, paid out 1 myth each.
Of the 2 that we got.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I can't remember if we went over, but there's sagas, myth, legends, and it's a 20 base system. So 20 saga equals 1 myth, 20 myth equals 1 legend.
Yeah.
Which is their copper, silver, gold coinage. Yeah, we showed it in the last video.
We did, yeah.
So we started, because we picked resources, the air, essence, and flicker, spirit, flicker, and essence. We only got 2 myths. If you chose money, then you'd get an additional 3, so you would have had 5 in total.
Yeah.
Myths to start, but yeah, we took half of our money each and signed up for the Adventurers Guild.
Yeah. And the Guildmaster was also saying about the bestiary, which, because of the fading, a lot of the information on the different creatures or beasts, spirits, whatever, in the world has disappeared. So the Adventurers Guild is building up a new bestiary for the creatures, basically.
Yeah, reclaiming knowledge and making it. They said that once they have a bunch more in there, they're gonna take them all out and kind of laminate them almost in a way, but also put them in alphabetical order. So you did the second creature that went into the bestiary, and I did the third.
Yeah.
However, they'll eventually be well back, because Shaft Shadows S alphabetically will be well back in the journal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did Shaft Shadows because obviously my character's interested in those and wants to learn more about them. And then you did...
I did Chasm Fish, which are a glowing kind of jellyfish in the caverns. They live in the lakes that have been purified by crystals for good enough for drinking water. But I found stickers on Amazon that kind of looked like what I imagine small ones would look like. So I stuck them in my journal while we were getting ready on Saturday to show people, be like, oh, because they are a pet as well, you can keep them as a pet. And I think the idea is to make kind of a little glowing orb type of thing, and to say that inside that glowing orb is actually the light in there is actually the jellyfish. I think that might be the idea behind it, to give us more lights to carry around and be like, oh, I always got my little pet with me. But I have said when mine die, I dry them out and stick them in here, so I always have them. Was kind of my idea behind it. So I donated one to the Adventurers Guild, which I named Shining Water of Bright, and it originally said, here lies Shining Water of Bright, gifted to the Adventure Guild bestiary. The rest of them that are in here I did not name because I didn't think about it until I started putting the one that I donated into the bestiary. So, maybe one day they'll all have names. Of course, they're all dead, so it doesn't matter.
They already have names, you just need to remember them.
Yeah, the fading, I can't remember what my pets are called.
After which we spoke to one of the guild masters and just sort of said, "Oh, we've finished like putting the stuff in." The guy said to hand the bestiary back to you.
Yep.
At which point he said, "Oh no, you can leave it there. Just close it, and I'll get your reward." At which point we were like,
A reward? What?
"Yeah, we were just doing it because we wanted to. We didn't do it for a reward." So we each got 5 sagas.
Yep.
And then between the two of us, we got I don't know if you've got it ready. An adventurer's favor token. Adventurer's Guild favor token.
Oh, my finger's like totally blocking part of it, although it's gonna be very small. There's like a
Yeah.
little A. It's has like kind of a fiery torch kind of design. Yeah.
This will probably fail like it did last week.
A little bit back. Turn your hand up so it hits the light. There. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that side, and then
The other side's
it's the same on both sides. You know what? I just realised it was kind of like cracking. But anyway.
It's not. It's literally a torch. That's a
Oh,
fire
I was holding it
torch
upside
with
down.
an A.
Classic. So yeah.
Yes, we got the token.
Yeah. Which we didn't really know what it did at the time.
No, they were just like, it's a favor token. And we were like, cool, well, we gotta go.
Yeah.
And so we headed out to try to look at the board at the Adventure Guild, which had kind of like their postings for skirmishes that you could like sign up to go on. However, it was like a massive tent with a small entrance, and the board was right in that entrance, so it was really hard to look at it. So we were kind of like meandering on the outside when one of the guild masters, Bonica Amici de Arabella,
Yep.
definitely mispronounced that one, but I'm not Portavos and I don't claim to be good at pronouncing fun names.
Sorry in advance. We just speak a lot of words.
Yeah. They called people around for a fight because they wanted to be entertained.
Yeah.
And it was a myth if you win.
Yeah. So we would have, after losing half of our money, we would have doubled our money from what we had currently. So we would have been back to normal.
Just one.
Yeah, but we would have been back to normal.
You would have been.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because not 2 people could win.
Yeah.
If I also fight, I also could have doubled my money,
Yeah.
but not you.
True. So
Math.
my character saying is, "Oh, what's the worst that could happen?" And I was
Yeah.
kind of like, "Oh, I don't really know if I want to go in."
I was like, go, you have fun.
And I was like, "I don't know." And then she said,
What's the worst that can happen?
At which point I knew I had to do it. But then a camp attack happened.
Yep, so as people were, I think it was like 4 or 5 of you stepped into the ring, a camp attack in Erdreben, which was directly behind the little kind of square of rope that the Adventure Guild had right outside of its tent. And a bunch of people that were waiting, I think maybe to go on a skirmish or something, they ran past, and we all just kind of stood there like, should we? And then the guild master goes something along the lines of like, they got it handy. I want to be entertained. Fight.
Like, I want to be entertained right now.
Which was so funny. But then you guys were already in the ring and ready to go, so.
Yeah, so we got in there, and then I looked at the guy closest to me, and I said, you know, if we could just take out the others and then fight between us. So it was a melee rules, which was, I think it was sparring rules, which is like, so you have 3 hits rather than like whatever your armor gives you.
Blunted blades, so you're not actually injured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I turned to the guy, I said, team, and then we started to gang up on this one guy, and then I just hear Joyous shout, "No, he's Cyrodianian!" At which point in my head I was just like, damn, like I've just said to this guy, like, oh, let's team and kill everyone else. Well, not kill everyone else, but you get there. And
Take them out.
Take them out, yeah. And then I get this shout at me, and I'm like, the Cyrodian community. I've got. I should have teamed with him, but I didn't know he was Cyrodian. So I think I hit them both once, and then
you hit
yeah, I hit the guy that I said I'd team with, which
yeah.
to this day I feel very guilty about.
Broke trust.
Yeah.
Broke the trust. And then you kind of went across the ring and you hit another person, the person who ended up winning.
Yeah.
Who that was their first hit, and they just said, "Ah, that's one hit for me," and just kind of like stood there. They're like, "Ah, that's one hit," and I was just like, "Hit him again." Which you proceeded to not.
Yeah, because they kind of slipped a little bit after I hit them, and I was like, oh, it looked like this to me. Maybe those sneaky Morvalis trying to get my bones. And then, yeah, they had a longer weapon than me, and I'm not very good at fighting with my two weapons, because my hands move together, which is kind of like the opposite of what you want, I think. So, yeah, they hit me twice, I think. I think I'd already gone down one or something. And then they ended up fighting against the guy that I said, oh, let's team. And then he lost, and I was like, I felt even worse, because I was like, if I hadn't hit him, would he have won? But we'll never know. And then, yeah, they won the myth. And we just kind of left, I think, right?
Yeah, and I just shook my head for like 5 minutes after, and I said, if you kept hitting that person that said, oh, that's one hit for me, they would have instantly been out, and you could have won your money back.
Yeah.
I think that was a bit of like Anora sneaking in.
What,
from
shaking
Empire. No, just the attitude of like, oh, if you had like, just kept going for it. I feel like that's much more of like my Empire character's personality, in that more kind of like serious. I feel like I should have reacted, been like, well, you tried your best, and did you have fun?
Yeah.
Been a bit like more lighthearted about it, but oh well.
Maybe. But at the end of the day, like, in both games we're poor now, so getting a chance to win the myth is like a big deal.
Yeah. Especially since we weren't doing any of the treasure hunter stuff where you could get yourself loaded, apparently.
Yeah. That is one thing, actually, I will say now. I much prefer the Adventurers Guild tent compared to the Treasure Hunters tent. Because with the Adventurers Guild, like, you have near enough the whole tent to like go in, whereas...
And they had like a little table in the middle that had benches that you could sit at.
Yeah, they had like juices as well for people to get a drink.
Juice and cookies.
Which was really nice. And then we went into the Treasure Hunters Guild.
Yeah, we said that last time because we'd gone in on Friday.
Yeah, and the tables are just like at the front near enough.
Yeah,
and they have like this massive space behind them.
Yeah, which doesn't really seem as like user friendly.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after that we learned about the Ugg mission, which was the troll that came through our camp who blessed my light on the Friday. And yes, don't touch it, they can see it. It flickers when you touch it.
The people listen to the podcast can't listen.
Well, they also can't see you if they're listening on Spotify. I'm so sorry, Spotify listeners. It is a crystal wrapped in black leather that is pink and orange, mostly pink. That it's basically a flashlight with a 3D printed pink crystal on it.
Yeah, it's very nice though.
Yeah, Rowan has a blue one, but it doesn't glow as brightly because the blue used is like much darker. So it's a shame.
Yeah,
but still cool. Yes, so we were like kind of quasi signed up for the Ugg mission.
Yeah,
which was scheduled for 5:30, although they told us 5:30, however it will likely go out later than that. And we said, oh, so we actually have to go do something from 6 to 8 o'clock. And like under your breath we said an out of character monster. And they said, ooh, I can't do anything about that, but if you go talk to your nation support, they can probably contact the right people and see if it's okay for you to still come on the UG mission and then maybe do that stuff another time. So we headed back towards camp when we left the fight and stuff like that that you'd done, and we started going back towards camp, passing the Bink Guild, so we stopped in.
Yeah, there's all these like different build fund projects, so it could be like anything, and there's like different ones for the different nations. There's some that any nation can do, and you can kind of pick the location of where it is.
Yeah.
And when we went to get our stuff from the bank on Friday, we like saw them, but
glanced at them, yeah.
But we didn't really like get a chance to fully look at them because it was so busy. We were like, oh, we don't want to be in here and stop other people from coming in.
Yeah.
So we went back in and was looking at the Ceridonia ones. The one that we had spotted had been taken and paid for already by some...
Well, I think that was later in the day because we went back twice.
No, the one I glanced at on the Friday was gone.
Oh, the big one that was on the wall. Yeah. That one I think they did on Friday.
Yeah.
That was like one of the most expensive Ceridonian ones as well.
I know.
Really impressive. On the wiki now, they've posted all of the builds, and it's the one that the one that he's talking about right now is the one that has the most donors from Ceridonia. Yeah. You can see all of the Ceridonian names on it. And so we were looking through we had like a pile of all the Ceridonia ones that we're kind of glancing through, and I was reading one about a Luna Moth Cave, which I think was only 4 myths and 2 sagas, and I was like, maybe like, we only have 2 sagas or 2 myths now between the two of us.
Yeah, but we still had loads of Flickr.
Yeah, so we were like, oh, maybe this is something like we could fund. And then 2 other Ceridonias come in, money jingling in their hands. And they were like, oh, where's that one? And I was like, oh, there's this one. They're like, yes, actually, that's the one we were looking for. We're paying for it right now. Yeah. And I was like, damn. I wanted to contribute and I'll do that one because it's bugs, Luna Moss. I don't know, it just sounded cool. So then we kind of got in line with them, and I started chatting with the 2 of them a bit more about what their intentions were with it, and they were kind of rebranding it for their Domus in Ceridonia, which Domus is like a household in our nation or tribe type of thing. So they had, I think, 4 players with them at this event, and at the last event. And so we kind of were chatting, and then we kind of got on the like topic of their Domus, and we're like, oh yeah, we're single and ready to mingle, looking for Domus because no one from our quote unquote Domus back in Ceridonia, which we'd come from separate ones anyways, came with us. We were looking both to kind of join a Domus that wants to be going out and saving the world, not just staying home. For my nation, or for my Domus, protecting the nation at home is like their aim. I don't know what your Domus is about in your head.
I just wanted a change. Strike wanted a change, so that's why he was ready to mingle. Yeah, so we kind of talked to them about their Domus, and then they asked us who we were supporting for Decurion of War, which is a kind of administrator position in Ceridonia. There are 4, because we have 4 orders of pillars, kind of, if you were. We have War, Luxury, Faith, and Stewardship.
Yep.
Testing me there.
Yeah. And so they were talking about a person who we hadn't heard of going for it. We had only heard one person who had been very loud and
I'm going for it on
the Friday. So we only kind of knew about that one person, and how they were interpreting the role wasn't how I or like my character viewed the role, because it is more of an administrative position of like the people who are actually in charge have said this. It doesn't, make you a leader necessarily. You're kind of like a messenger.
Yeah, so
in a way.
I think from lore-wise, a lot of the leaders of the nations got killed in like a year or two before. So I think the new leaders of the nation are being more like stay-at-homey.
Yeah,
so they
not coming out.
So they need like an administrator to relay the words of the leaders back to the people in the Haven, kind of thing.
Yeah, and also tell the leaders what's going on in Haven as well, maybe.
Yeah.
Can be part of it. So they basically unintentionally sent us on a quest to go find that person in camp. We kind of strolled up to camp. In the back of our minds, we were like, we still need to talk to Nation Support about going to the UG mission later in the evening.
Yeah.
But it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock. It can wait. So we started talking to this person who wanted to go for a Decurion of War, and we were like, yeah, you're hitting all the points that I agree with, and he hit points that like your character agreed with, and we were like, yeah, you know what, we'll support you in this fight.
Yeah. I was like thinking that they weren't going to have a big group supporting them, because I didn't want to support someone with like a massive group, because that would make it maybe more like fair and like balanced and maybe a bit more entertaining.
Yeah, so basically because we wanted to get a snack before it happened, we were like, oh, we won't bother you so you can prepare for the fight. And we started walking away, and that's right when one of our threads said, Decurion of War, gather this way.
Yeah.
So we had like a quick drink of water, really, and gathered over there and stood behind one of the 4 champions that were going for this position. And there were 2 large groups and 2 smaller groups. Yeah. And we were in one of the large groups. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So I feel bad now, because like, I wanted to support the little guy, Yeah. But yeah, and then we had like the thread. The Nation Support said you can use anything. Anything you would normally be able to use, you can use now, but no outside interference. So
no other nations can help fight.
Yeah. So one of the like contestants or aspirants brought in like a couple of Morvalis jesters, which was
not to fight.
No.
Just to be like funny cheerleaders. They were great. I love them.
They were. I was so confused. They just like run through the middle and like be like, what?
I saw them multiple times after that, Saturday and Sunday, and they had very similar colors to what my character wears, which is that like pink and purple and a bit of blue. And so every time I saw one of them, I would joke and say like, I have your colors, like I'm all ready to join the group. And yeah, one of them on the Sunday said like maybe a bit too much black, and I was like, why, what's wrong with black? It works so well with the colors. But yeah, so it ended. Our group kind of went to the left. The other big group, which was opposite of us, also went to the left and took out a smaller group. Yeah. And so the 2 small groups got, unfortunately, taken over very quickly. And then it was just down to the 2 big groups. And our champion said,
like parlay,
let's just have a one-on-one duel. No one else involved, so we all kind of just put our swords at our sides and watched them fight it out. And did they start punching? I feel like no.
The guy said what the loser said about another fight.
Oh.
They were like, they met someone on the battlefield that they knew like out of character, so they started to like pretend to fist fight and stuff. But in the Decurion fight, they were fighting and they were both low, and
because it was like your full health stats. It wasn't like Rowan's fight earlier in the day that was best of 3 like hits.
Yeah.
It was like your full stats.
Yeah.
And they were both like heavy armored, like
So,
8 hits probably, maybe more if they took potions.
yeah. And then Achaidh got down, and then he said regeneration.
Yeah.
So he like got back up with 3 hits, hit the guy once, and he went down, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
So they got healers over. They picked the loser up, and then our champion, our new Decorian of War, said, "This guy is going to be my second if I'm not here." Then the person he 1v1'd was acting Decorion, which is really cool as well.
Yeah, that's nice. It did. That moment kind of like when he said that, I was like, okay, but this isn't a leadership position. You said so yourself. I was a bit kind of like, oh, I don't know if you can have a second if it's not really a leader, but whatever, you know, it's still like a really nice gesture. And he checked up, like they checked up on each other after the battle in character, and it was like part of that whole like community vibe where we were all kind of like standing there, and like no matter what side you were on, you're like kind of like checking on like other people that were in the fight and just being like, oh, were you okay? Are you okay? Yeah, you know, and that was like kind of a really nice vibe.
Yeah.
That we had.
Yeah, it was really nice. Then after the fight, we managed to see one of the threads.
Yep, and asked them, hey, can you check if we can go on the UG mission? It's at 5:30, and they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'm like, except it might go out after 6, and they're like, oh, okay, let me check on that and get back to you later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we let them go and deal with that while we kind of decided to...
Then we just had a little bit of lunch, didn't we? Because we just fought, and then we had a little bit more water.
We went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
We ran into one of the newer players who was struggling a bit, kind of like how we were struggling on the Friday. They were still struggling on the Saturday a bit.
Yeah.
Just kind of understanding like how to be like in character and not be yourself, which is a very real struggle when you haven't done it before, and everyone else around you seems to be like getting it so instantly.
Yeah.
So we had like a bit of a chat, and then went to the bathrooms, and then we found them and then a couple other people outside of tents, and we sat down and chilled out for a while and just had like a nice kind of like out of character chat with them.
Yeah.
And just kind of giving some like pointers that we could about like finding something about your character that you can act upon always. Like, Strikes is, you know, if you say to him, what's the worst can happen?
Apparently I'll do anything.
He'll do anything. That's his character trait.
So yeah, we just sort of spoke about like improving and like you doesn't have to be like true. Like your character can lie as well. You can say something and then if someone says, "Oh, that's not the case," you can just sort of say like, "Oh, this is like I'm new to this like out of character," or you can just sort of make it up and just be like, "No, I'm right. You're wrong. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you can basically bullshit your way through everything.
Yeah. And they went off to the toilet, and then there was like an attack.
Yeah, like a camp incursion, a bad camp incursion.
Yeah.
Over in Valdraith. So we kind of ran over to Valdraith and took care of it, and then we were getting the battle got pulled from the camp because we were kind of fighting your menhir. We got pulled through up to a corrupted menhir to save it. And so when we found that out, I went not that way. I went back around to the tents and said to the new player who was like unsure of like everything, I was like, "You're coming because we're gonna need a healer," because they were a healer. I was like, "You're coming, like you have to come. This is going to be a fun thing."
Yeah.
Right? Like it'll be fun, please come. So they got there, they're like, okay, they got their gear on. There was another new player who was thinking about taking a nap and then had a bit of FOMO and was like, no, I'll come too, and like caught up to us as we were like going up. And
it was a really nice moment, actually.
Yeah.
I've seen them like kind of excited but like nervous as well for their
as we're like walking up there, like, oh my gosh, what do you expect? And it's just like, okay, well, it's new to us as well, but like, there'll be the evil monsters. We're gonna be trying to like gain control of an area, and basically like, because you're a healer and you only have a dagger, please stay behind, everyone.
Yeah, we just
let us bring dying people to you.
Yeah.
Please don't go out and get yourself killed.
Yeah, they were like, oh, what do I do? I'm like a healer. And we were like, okay, anytime someone says we need a healer, you just like go over to them, basically.
Yeah, I think when we were having like a bit of like out of character chat like at the tents, I kind of went over like how some of the roleplay that I've done or I've seen from like experience at Empire, because I play a healer at Empire, how I would like handle that kind of situation. So I think that talk that we had just before this moment really like helped encourage them, which like I'm really happy about, and I hope that's the case. Like, I don't want to speak for them, but like I know that they did have fun on this afterwards because they said so after. So I'm really glad that I convinced them to come.
Yeah, I am too. Just seeing like how happy they were and how they were feeling before, like it's like a complete contrast. So
basically we walk up to there's like a big open field, and that is where the camp is, and then there's up this farm road up a hill, there's the big battlefield area, and then
another field just on a hill,
and then there's wooded bits. So I think there's some tent like inside tent kind of incursion thing that you could skirmish, you could be going in. We didn't get to do that. We only went to the woods twice. Once now, and then once when we were monstering later in the evening.
So we got up to the top of the hill and they like briefed us a little bit.
There was a can you hear me? This is what's happening. You're going in. You're feeling pulled by the menhirs. Once you pass this gate, you need to secure the corrupted menhir that's in there, somewhere in there, for 20 minutes. You need to hold it for 20 minutes. But once you go through this gate, this was the scary part. Once you go through this gate, once you're pulled through, it's locked for 10 minutes. You cannot leave for 10 minutes. The portal is closed. So no matter what happened when we went through, they could have outnumbered us. Like, they could have easily had like more skirmish members and like outnumbered us. We were a fairly large group, so we held like our own pretty well. I think it was pretty evenly matched.
We had a bit of a tough start because
we had to push them continually back for a while.
So and then as soon as we got there, we spread out a little bit. They spread out, and then just this big troll walks through,
and it wasn't Ugg.
No, and we were like, do we try and like make friends with it? And then it just started like attacking people. And it was like, well, there goes that idea.
And it was, I think, an instant stagger when it hit you. So not only did it do a health point if it hits you, it staggers you. So I started shouting to everyone, don't let it hit you. You're gonna be staggered if it hits you, because there were refs there, and there were. Because it's obviously a person inside of the troll outfit. It was huge. So they had people, like evil fallen skirmish crew members that were always like with the troll, and you could hit them and they were just saying resist, resist, resist. Like, you can't kill me because I'm here. Basically they were there to protect the troll, like the actual person, to make sure they didn't hurt themselves in the fight. But they weren't really telling people at that point, like, until it like hit you. So I was trying to like spread it. I was like, don't let it hit you. It'll stagger you. like it's gonna hurt. It's gonna knock you back. So it was like wave after wave, but we did break through. We did get the menhir, and we had a bit of like a moment of respite around the menhir. People were starting to get healed. We kind of like looked around. The menhir was like down in a pit, basically.
Yeah.
I think if it had rained, there would have been water down there. It's a bit of a wet spot, but it was so dry. Luckily. So, we kind of looked around. We're like, okay, where could they come from? We kind of made this like arc, and one person goes, "Do you think they'll come from behind?" And I kind of looked back, and I said, "No, I don't. I really hope not, because there's only healers back there."
Yeah.
And yeah, so then the waves did start coming. Another troll came through.
And then from like where they came out, there was like a path that goes all the way around and then like slopes back down into where the menhir is, right into the healers. So we had like there was like a couple of the fallen who just sprinted all the way around, and we were like, I didn't know we could go that way. And they just ran around, like started attacking the healers. A couple of them, those fallen got taken out, and I was like on the hill trying to stop people coming, and then there was one who was like going crazy. He was like screaming and like just like wildly attacking, and like he was just like swinging, and I'd just like take a step back, and then I'd just like wait for him to miss and then just like hit him. That
was like some of the best like role play.
Yeah.
That guy who was playing a fallen, he was like just like 2 daggers. Like it wasn't even like swords, they were basically daggers, and he just ran in like so crazy.
I know.
Like it was so funny.
It was funny because like I was fighting this guy with a shield before. He had like a shield and like a one-handed weapon, and obviously I had like my sword and hammer. And we were like, "Oh, come on then, yeah, let's fight." And I was just, like, neither of us was stepping forwards. This is Bo.
Bo's back to my lap.
And like we were trying to like just like look for an opening, but there wasn't any from like either of us. And then this like guy runs in with the 2 daggers, and like even the guy with the fallen with the shield just like stood there like, I don't know what he's doing. I'm just gonna let him do it.
Yeah.
And then he died, and then me and this other one like teamed up on the guy with the shield, and he was like, "What happened to 1v1? This isn't fair." And I was like, "It is what it is, mate."
Yeah, life's not fair.
Yeah, literally. And you know, like going back and getting healed, like the waves kept coming. It was really fun, actually.
Yeah, it was a good fight. Towards the end of the fight, because no one took note of how long we had been there, how long we had control of the menhir. The new LARPer was just kind of like, you know, "Oh, this is really fun," and I was like, "You want to try something even more fun?" And I'll make sure you make it out. And I gave them one of my swords, because I'm ambidextrous, so I have the 2. So I gave them the unenchanted one, because I didn't want to lose my enchanted sword. And I said, "Go and fight." And we went out, and yeah, they borrowed my sword for the rest of that wave. And then the wave kind of ended, and we kind of were like standing there, and one of the ref people were just like, "Oh, hey, by the way, you can tell the portal's open." And I said, "Okay, so it's been 10 minutes, so we need to hold it for another 10 minutes. And they're like, No. You've done your 20. You guys can go." And we're like, "Okay, guys, pack it in. We got this. It's ours. We defeated them."
Yeah.
Which was like I think the funniest part about that is like, we were all kind of like standing around and was like, "Anyone know how long we've had the menhir for? Anyone?" And we're all like, No. And the ref just kind of
fighting.
Like, yeah, the ref just like slide up to me and was like, "Hey, you can tell the portal's open." And I was like, "Oh, we got 10 more minutes." And no. "You guys can go." We're like, "Cool."
Yeah.
So we headed back, and the walk between the forest and where the battlefield is down to camp is all like out of character, so we kind of like talked to the new player again, got my sword back, and we talked to the other one who was also like, "I'm so glad I didn't nap."
Yeah. And like spoke to a couple of other people from the new player group just to see how like they were finding it, and they were having loads of fun.
Yeah.
Which is
always good to hear.
exactly.
Yeah.
I would say perfect to hear.
Perfect.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Which was nice. And then trying to remember what we did after that. I have notes. We went back to find our
nation support, so we could see if UG was okay, or it was okay to go on the UG adventure. They said it was, but we might have to change monster slots.
Yep. Yeah, they said to just do the monster slot after, because they were saying, I said I would prefer to do monstering during the daytime rather than nighttime. And they said, okay, cool, go for the one before, because that was kind of all that there was left. Because one had just started. I think it must have been around 2 then.
Yeah.
Because 2 to 4, 4 to 6, and we were supposed to be 6 to 8. So they said do the 4 to 6, and I said, well, actually we have to be there at 5:30, so we can't do that one either. Can't do ours, can't do the one before, so we'll do the one after, is kind of what we had decided.
Yeah.
And
in like finding them as well, we saw, is this when we saw the group with the golden headbands?
Yeah, so we kind of, when we first walked back into camp, I went to where Nation Support kind of generally hung out and was like, anyone know where this thread is? And they're like, nope, no idea. I turn around and that thread was literally across the road sitting on a chair in the sun.
Yeah.
It was like, cool, I'm not the only blind person.
Yeah, but it seemed like other people were like looking for the threads as well and like couldn't find them. They're like, oh, we don't know where the threads are. And then this one thread, who I think is the best thread, by the way, like so we spoke to them loads and they were like really fun.
Yeah, they're nice.
Not naming any names. They were like, oh yeah, I've been here the whole time, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's when we had a chat with them. They were with another group that have like these, handmade by one of them, golden circlets with like star kind of designs on them. So freaking cool.
Yeah.
Really cool kit.
That they literally made themselves. I was like, did you like buy them from somewhere? They're like, no, I made them.
And we were like,
oh my god.
Well, it's one of those things of like, in character you say, oh yeah, I made this. So I did like an out of character, like, you actually made them? Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because like, my character would say, I made my crystal crown. I just bought it on Etsy though.
Yeah.
Stephanie. But Joyous made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked to them, and then no, that notes are done. I wrote my notes in like the lightest color ever. It's so hard to read.
I couldn't read it at all before.
Oh, the awning.
Oh,
That's when the awning happened.
Yeah, so our awning that we just freshly got, one of the eyelets broke and it like collapsed.
And then there was a camp attack.
And yeah, so we had to like run over.
Yeah, we dealt with we took the awning down and it just laid it down because the fire wasn't on, it wasn't over the fire. We were like, we'll leave it on the ground and come back. We went to deal with a camp incursion attack.
I think I ended up staying though.
Yeah, I went.
Yeah.
Maybe. I can't remember that fight that much.
No, I think you went, and then someone came over and started speaking to me.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was chatting with this person, like, I can't remember, I actually can't remember who it was.
It was the priest.
Oh, it was the priest.
It must have been, because when I came back, you were still talking, and I started working on taking the pegs and working on the awning and stuff, and you kept talking to this priest.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there, I'm like getting so frustrated. It's like it happened on Friday as well, where the awning was coming down in the wind, and so I'd be like holding a pole, and he just starts chatting to someone, like someone just comes up and just starts chatting to him, and I'm like, right, could you help me here? Like,
I was having a lovely conversation with this priest. They were a priest of the muse, and they were. I said, I still got my faith token. I'm like kind of looking to give it out. I'm shopping around for the different gods just to see which one, wins me over. And they were saying, oh, the muse is about, you know, a new journey beginning and things like that. At which point I was, you know, being Strike, I was like, oh, well, like, I've come on this new journey to Haven, like, I've started a new life literally in the last month or two.
Yeah.
This is like perfect. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I got dedicated to the muse, which...
While I pulled pegs out of the ground.
Yeah, the very hard ground. It was very hard to get pegs out of.
It was so hard.
And I had a lovely chat with the priest, and, you know, he was saying, oh, it's kind of hard to get faith tokens, so, you know, and I said, well, you've won me over.
Yeah.
If you won me over, I'm sure you can win anyone over, kind of thing.
Which is cute, because the muse, one of the symbols, because there's 3 symbols for every god, one of the symbols is the moon.
Yeah.
Which, at Empire, there's a lost and found freebie, like, things that have been sitting in lost and found and not claimed for a year. At the end of most events, go into bins that you can go pick something out, go back into the line and pick another thing out and go around like that. And so you've gotten this pin because it was on something else that you wanted, and you took it off, and you've never used this pin.
No.
But you randomly brought it with you because
it was like kind of black and silvery, so I was like, oh, that could be like kind of Ceridonian.
Yeah.
Like it's for our Empire characters, it's like not marchery at all.
No.
So I was like, oh, I'll bring it. Maybe I'll put it on, and then I got dedicated to the muse.
And it happens to have a crescent moon on it.
Yeah.
And so you went and put it on. You're like, I got my muse.
I think I put it on Sunday because I forgot that I brought it with me. Like after I got dedicated.
Yeah.
So then we packed away the awning.
We had snacks.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really have lunch at that point. Or we kind of had lunchy snack at that point.
Yeah, I think we had like an orange or something.
Yeah, and then we probably ended up like walking around a bit.
Yeah, I think this might have been when we went back into the bank.
Oh yeah, so because we did go back to the bank.
Yeah.
And we just had like a sit down they had like a middle table because their tent was like a double. Actually, I have where'd my character notebook go? Oh, there it is. I have a drawing that I did at the bank.
Oh yeah.
Of the tent, so you can see
So it has like 2 big posts, so that it kind of like goes up and like down in the middle, and then there was like a table in the middle with
like that.
The different cashiers on either side.
The door was in the middle, and then there's like the 2 tents. So in the middle there was the table. Yeah.
Which was really nice, and then we saw some of the new Ceridonians come in, and we said, oh, like, I've heard that you're looking to find Ceridonian artifacts.
That's right, yeah.
This build might be perfect for you because it was all about housing
artifacts that get found.
Yeah. And then they said, oh, what, are there any others? And I said, well, probably not this one, because this one is about finding artifacts and then using them for new purposes, which is probably not what you want to be doing if you're finding them.
Maybe.
But
they were gonna go talk to the bank about creating something for their domus, or from their domus wanted to make something specific, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So hopefully that gets built at some point.
Yeah.
Then we kind of chilled. Probably more camp attacks.
Yeah, there's always
something. And then 5 p.m.-ish, I headed towards the Adventurers Guild, because I think you said you'd meet me there. Bo's just scratching her chew.
Yeah.
If you can hear that, sorry. But yeah, so I headed to the Loo and then around to the Adventurers Guild, and there was a massive crowd there, and I was like, okay, well it's 5:15. We were supposed to be meeting at 5:30, so maybe this is for a different one. And I just kind of stood there waiting for Rowan to show up, listening, and then I heard, and I was like, okay, yep, this is definitely for the UGG. And there were a lot of Ceridonians there.
Yeah, and then a lot of... and then UGG walked down.
Yeah, so UGG came, but before that, there was a guild master, because it was kind of before you came. There was a guild master who was like, musicians and artists, come here. I want to talk about your mission for the day. Artists, I want you to draw the battle in all of its glory. Musicians, write songs. And then a group of musicians, which some of them I think were friends and some of them were like not friends to start with. They created a band called the Trolling Stones.
Why does that sound familiar?
And then there were, other people drawing and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, okay, well, it seems like there's a lot of people here. I don't know if they're going to have a player cap. So my way to like get to go was like, I can fight and draw at the same, well, not at the same time, but both. I can do both.
You're multi-talented,
multifaceted, ambidextrous. I'm ready to go. I'm going on this. We begged and pleaded with nation support to be able to go on this.
Yeah.
We should be allowed to go. And then, Ugg came, but then
you let him hold your glowing purple rock, which he loved.
He loved, and then he was like, the foam hands, they didn't actually bend, so he was like, I don't want to lose it, please take it back. Which was cute. And then so one of the big honchos of Menhirs Fate, Nick, as well as one of the guild masters, called all Ceridonians into the Adventure Guild tent. No one else, everyone else, just stay put. And we all went in, and they were so kind and so nice. They're like, we love that you guys are here to help someone. Ugg, he lives in a cave. We know that that's very much like your kind of vibe in Ceridonia. And we also know that you're supposed to be monstering. So what's going to happen, because we don't want to stop you guys from going on big adventures, is you guys can go and then go to the monstering tent on your way back down and see if they want you to pick up from that point or come back for the later one. Yeah. Which, like, we had already talked to our nation support about going to the later one, so we're like, okay, well, cool now.
Yeah, we sort of said like
everyone's clear, not just us.
Yeah, we sort of, like, a lot of us and a few others were like, we don't mind like doing a later one or a different one, so that we do the full like 2 hours rather than just part of the time. They said no, it's fine, like we want you to have fun, which was really nice. Yeah, so then we all came out of the tent and started our trek following Ugg to the menhir at the edge of camp, which then teleported us, quote unquote, because we had to walk up the hill ourselves, up to the big battlefield area. Yeah, because I don't know if it was meant to be in a smaller place before, but with like the amount of people that wanted to like help Ugg, they sort of had to do it on the battlefield. Yeah, there were so many people. So then we all went up to the battlefield, and then waves after waves of fallen started attacking us. Some of them looking very familiar because it was the Ceridonia monster slot. Yep, so we knew some of those fallen. Which was kind of fun to do like tongue-in-cheek like sayings with them, like what do you like. Yeah, pick on them. What's a coward joins the fallen? And like, just kind of be like, ooh, I'm gonna kill you. No, I'm gonna kill you. So that was fun. Yeah, it was a nice battle, and seeing Ugg so happy, and then at the end when he was like cheering. Yeah. He's like, oh, my home. Yeah. And he's like, I'll give you the big rock that goes wee. Yeah. Which is cute. And so, during the battle, we had, like, the healers behind, and the Fallen with, like, the skirmish crew were doing a really good job of trying to separate the group, because basically all of the fighters kept creating one giant
line across the battlefield, but the Fallen were like splitting up and coming to attack the sides to kind of draw people outward so that Fallen could get in. I think through the middle was kind of the like, in my mind, this is the battle plan that I'm seeing for them. I was like, ooh, guys, let's not break the middle. guys. And there was at one point where they did have us kind of like pinned, like we were like a very tight V shape. Like the angle space that we had was very small at one point, and so we pushed them like back out. But there were people from other nations there fighting, which was really cool because so far like no one really needed to come help Ceradonia camp attacks. We kind of got ourselves. Like Valdraith kind of have themselves, but we often went to help them because they were nearby.
I think they do have themselves.
Yeah.
I think some of the smaller nations asked for help, but at the same time we were worried that like, oh, you know, this is like their fight and we're like taking their game kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's like the every time Ceradonia to arms, blah 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 needs you, and it's like, guys, maybe not, because they need to have like their own
fights, you know, they gotta stick up for themselves.
And just because you can see, like personally see the skirmish crew, their hands are up and your character has no idea they're there. So it's kind of like when you're in it,
it's hard because like, you don't want to miss out, I think. And like there being something to do, I think naturally, like we did it like a couple times where it's like, oh, we want to go and fight because we don't want to miss out.
Like how we ended up like in Erdreven randomly, but we were just like kind of walking by at that point.
Yeah.
Hello, puppy.
And then you met someone from Morvalis on the Ugg adventure.
Yeah, so after the battle concluded, I got a charcoal out and I started to like scribble kind of like a battle scene of like Ugg being woo, and then while I was kind of just meandering about, because I lost Rowan at this point, didn't know where he was, so I was like, I'll just kind of stand put and like scribble and draw as one of my jobs that I gave myself by going on the Ugg mission. But yeah, so I started to draw, and a Morvalis person was like, oh, make sure to get my good side, and they were weave marked. So in this game,
I think we said about it last week. Maybe.
Yeah, probably, but I'm just recapping for people who don't listen maybe to every single thing.
That's right.
It's also like over an hour, so probably no one's listening at this point anyway, so just let me talk.
I'll be listening.
Yeah, they were weave marked, so the different spheres have different things that they can kind of do to you, and they're permanent, semi-permanent. You know, you can change weave marks as you're exposed, but they had, 6 eyes basically, and looked so cool. So I started sketching them, and we started talking and introducing ourselves, and they go, right, so I have to call you by your whole name the whole time. I was like, well, my friends will call me Joyce, and then we're like, oh, well, we're friends, and they introduced themselves and they also had a long name from Morvalis, which shortened down to probably 5 different nicknames for themselves.
Yeah. One of which was very memorable, but I couldn't remember like any of the words or like even pronounce like
any of the names,
their actual proper name.
And we ended up going down the hill, and we stayed in character the entire time, the 2 of us, and there was another person from Morvalis that was also there, and we just kind of like stayed in character. It's technically out of character when you're walking up and down that hill, but we stayed in character like the whole time. And then after that we joined, when we got to the bottom of the hill, we parted ways with the Morvalis, and we went over to the monster queue tents, walked through, and we're here, and there was kind of no one really knew what to do with us because they didn't really have anything the skirmish crew was having dinner at that point, so they didn't have any big plans for that like moment. So we kind of hung around for a bit. We ended up going on a fallen mission where we went back up to the woods.
Yeah. We were fallen looking for
Erdreven that we had captured.
Or like attacked a caravan of or something. But it was quite funny because the premise was like, we needed 3 people to be like Erdreven survivors, and then 3 fallen people who were pretending to be Erdreven survivors.
Yeah.
And like ran and like hid in with the players while we were searching for the Erdreven.
Yeah, so we were like in 3 different groups. And we were basically told to look through the woods. However, the Erdreven people on this mission came up. They found the 6 survivors and had them well off behind them, and then they all just held a line.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't come into the woods, so then we were like, okay, like, they could obviously see us, like, searching the woods, like, the group that was, on our side, they could see us, and none of them, I think one person came up, and we were being held back by the skirmish, like, leader. And he was like, okay, yeah, go, you guys, you go up that way, they'll go that way, and we're like, we go around this bush, and we're like, oh, there's one right there, and then by the time, like, our group, kind of, like, formed back up together, that one Erdreven went back up to their group, and they just kind of held a line.
Yeah.
So we went up. We were told, the 3 groups, we were all gonna storm at once, but they were already holding this line.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard. So we showed up. The other 2 groups started immediately fighting, and we had you, me, 2 other experienced, maybe like 2 newer to LARP players in our group. So, but we were all very like tentative, like, I don't want to be the first to make a move, which is, we're monstering, so, like, we should be making the first move, like, how we'd said about that one guy being, like, super crazy.
Yeah.
Is how we should have been at the start.
I think we said, we were going to do, like, essentially outnumber tactics. If we outnumber them, we'll attack.
Yeah.
If we don't, then we won't
run.
attack.
Yeah.
And they just, like, stood in this line, at which point we were like...
What do we... And we're in a line, and we were just, like, 2 lines. So I started, like, bickering, like, back and forth with, like, one of the Erdreven. It was like, oh, you're gonna come over here and, like, die. And then the fake Erdreven, the 3 fallen, started attacking well off in the distance. So you said, like, your friends are getting killed behind you, and this guy was just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, not that it's fine. He's like, I'm not worried about them.
Yeah, at which point I was just trying to get them to turn around so we could, like, attack, and I was like, I don't know, they're getting pretty close. Are you sure you're fine? Like, you're not gonna turn around and have a look, see how they're doing? Yeah,
and they really went. So we just kind of, like, did a little bit of, like, that. I saw out of the corner of my eye, the other group was, like, the other 2 groups of us were fighting. People were, like, fallen people were dying, so they were going back to the respawn point. So we finally started fighting at one point.
Yeah, it was essentially just, like, suiciding ourselves, where we just, like,
but
ran in and, like...
On the first one, we did really... Or maybe it was the second wave.
I think it was the second.
Yeah, so we kind of, like, suicided ourselves. They still held a line, because we had one person who just basically held our line while the rest of us responded.
Yeah, I don't know how they just survived on their own. Like, we respawned, and they
were
said...
still there.
Yeah. The guy was like, oh yeah, like, okay, you guys run around, like, everyone just run around together and just, like, attack at the same time kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, so at one point we did push the Erdreven people backwards. One of the Erdreven fell down with like 0 hits, and we pushed their line back further, so then that person was behind us for a while and on like their death counter, and so we were trying to like hold it while in the meantime they were pushing so hard.
Yeah, they outnumbered us a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
they did really well, and so then like because you don't want to step on this person, I kept being like that person of like, careful, the dying are here, like, let's not step on them.
Yeah.
And like, we basically then were pushed back around that person, so they were able to carry him out.
Maybe you are. I think I saw the person behind me and I was like, instead of going back, I'm just going to go in.
Forward?
Because like, I don't want to step on anyone. I'd hate to be stepped on.
Yeah.
So I just like went in between two, like they just both attacked me and I just like went on the floor, tried to attack them a little bit more, and then they just finished me.
Yeah, and that's how we lost that person to life, you know?
Yeah.
They got to live, fortunately for them,
Yeah.
unfortunately for us as Fallen, but yeah, and then when we went back to the respawn point, one of the new LARPers was like, I got hit, what do I do? We're like, oh, you should have stayed. You have like 3 hits. Die. And I gave him pointers of like how to die like gracefully. I was like, they're gonna keep hitting you, but once you get to like your hit points, just drop to your knees and go like, I'm dying. And like just basically let them know that you're going down like nice and gentle. You don't need to hurt yourself. And then my final wave, I did not take my own advice.
Nope.
Everyone around me was dying, and I got downed, and then our skirmish captain walked by and was like, you have regeneration. Or, well, he did it earlier, so then I remembered I still had regeneration.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in this final one, I went down, and died, and then regeneration, and I got back up and I just flung myself through them, like whipping my swords like every which way, just trying to hit them as they all just like hit me. I don't even know how many times they hit me, but I just fell. I actually fell, and I smashed my knee into the like both my knees into the ground. It was like an ash pit that I fell into.
Yeah.
And so then I just rolled over as they killed me. They just kept hitting me, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Ow. And then one of the Erdreven guys was like, you're probably my favorite Fallen. And I was like, thanks. Thanks.
Knees hurting in white ash.
Yeah.
And then we just see, like, I was at the respawn point and we just see you, like, hobbling back with, like, white knees. And then you're like, I think I broke my chainmail.
Oh, I definitely, one of the other Fallen, who was part of our crew, came over and was like, do you want a hand? And at first I thought it was one of the Erdreven people, but then when I actually looked up and saw him, because I was ready to just lay there and stay there, but when he picked me up, I like bent like too much, and my weak ass chainmail just popped.
Yeah.
It broke. It was dead after that fight, and so we went back. I took off, I was borrowing your shin guard so that I had full heavy armor.
Yeah.
I took off the shin guard, pulled my like pants up to my knees, and it was, the whole knee was yellow.
Yeah.
The whole knee. And I was like, I bet the other one looks the same. I'm so out of breath. And then the guy who won Decurion of War was on this like with us. He had, I think, played one of the fake Erdreven people.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the blue Fallen, well, I don't know, tabard
coloured
type,
kind of,
yeah, scarf thing.
identifier.
Yeah, that word. So he was like, oh, if you don't want to go back out, I'll take it for the next wave. So I gave it to him, and then one of the refs came back and was like, yeah, so the Erdreven completed their mission, so they're just leaving.
Yeah.
So there's not another wave. We're like, cool.
Yeah. So we were monstering for what felt like 30 minutes of our like 2-hour slot.
Yeah, because
Of
we
which,
did a
like,
lot of sitting.
10 were like waiting, at least 10.
Oh, Well, no, because it was like we waited for probably 20 minutes down at the monster tent, went up the hill, were given our brief, and then we had to hide in the woods
Yeah.
as the Erdreven walked up. Of course, they're out of character technically, but they could see where we were hidden because they hit us right next to the road walked up, and there was this big opening in the leaves, so they could fully see us just sitting there waiting for them.
Yeah.
Not that they ever came down. I think they should have had to come further into the woods, because that part of the woods where we first started was so cool, and that was supposed to be our respawn point. But they didn't budge from their line. Once they had their people, they just stayed up on that upper part and didn't come down, which is a shame because the lower part was really cool. But anyways, after that we went back to camp, defeated.
Yeah.
Tired. Took off all of our heavy armor.
Yeah, easy for you because it was broken.
It was broken, yeah. And then we kind of had decided, we won't fight anymore. However, we forgot the big mission of the weekend, which...
Oh, someone...
No, which...
This isn't the big mission.
No, I know.
Okay.
But I was going to say,
Go on.
maybe we wait, because we're already at 119. We wanted to do Saturday and Sunday all in one.
We've done 80% of Saturday.
80% of Saturday. We are at 8 o'clock on Saturday night right now.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we pause. Say what you were gonna say.
If
it's relevant, I guess.
No, I won't say it.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll say that.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Cliffhanger. There's a spoiler in his brain. But yeah. So we'll go over the rest of Saturday and Sunday in our next one. Yeah. Because this is already quite long.
Yeah.
Apologies.
But thank you very much for listening. If you've got this far, well, even if you didn't, and for some reason you're hearing this, thank you for listening at all. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.